everybody needs three people in their lives. You need somebody at your level, okay, to understand and relate to, and then even compete with. You need somebody above you to aspire to be and lead, and you need people below you to inspire, so that as you move up, then the people below you can move up as well. So you're setting the standard for yourself.
I feel like I'm Bradley right now. We were just talking about Bradley, and I'm like, folks, I got something great for you today. I'm like impersonating other people. But I actually really do have somebody great here today. I have Dr. Jonathan Gabriel Anthony Mike here. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I just added those filler words to make other people laugh. I got Dr. Jonathan Mike today. I love taking the information from the people who have it to the people who need it, as my mentor has once said. So I have somebody special here for us today.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so stoked. This is going to be great. This is going to be a fun, packed, full 45 minutes. But I don't know if you've watched a couple of my podcasts, and I like to kick off the podcast by asking you a question.
Got it.
Because I feel like people that listen to my podcast, they're like, the first thing is like, why should I listen to Celina, right? Like, what's the whole point? So my first question is for you is, why should people listen to this podcast? Why should people listen to you? Let's kick off the podcast.
Let's do it.
With
Well,
that.
because we're going to kick ass. We're going to bring all kinds of value to leaders, health and fitness, entrepreneurs, sports performance coaches, trainers. And it's all about getting people better and getting them to the next level and the next higher version of themselves, so they can go out and influence and persuade and lead the world, because that's what we need more of in this life.
I love that. And for anybody that follows the Elliott Army, everybody knows that we practice physical mental business. And actually, this is the first doctor that I've had on my podcast. So I'm going to have to like highlight that in bold letters. But anyways, let's just kind of start with your story, where you come from, your background, what got you into health, what got you decided for you to be a doctor. Let's get started on that.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. So I got my undergrad and master's at Western Kentucky University in exercise and sports science. I was a strength and conditioning assistant coach there for a couple years while finishing, and then I moved to University of Louisville for about a year. Do the same thing with like women's sports. So I've coached baseball, softball, track, and swimming, and then women's softball, some stuff with lacrosse. And then I was at a point in time to where, okay, like what's the next step, right? I mean, I love coaching, coaching is teaching and teaching is coaching. And coaching can be, it can extend above and beyond just like, sports. It can be with entrepreneurship, it can be with companies and leadership and organization. So I ended up getting a full scholarship to University of New Mexico in Albuquerque to do my PhD in exercise and sports science. It'll be almost 9 years. It'll be 9 years next month till I've been finished.
Why did you decide to go into exercise, health, and fitness?
Because at the time I felt that, of course, strength and conditioning, it's a relatively newer field. And I'm talking about in the grand scheme of things, in terms of just like total time. Like for example, like sport nutrition, as we know it today, was really developed in the late 1980s. So it's still relatively new, even though we have so many advances that have come in terms of the scientific, research. But I love coaching, but at the time, I wanted a little bit more like versatility and a little bit more flexibility and autonomy. And so I ended up wanting to get my doctorate for that, because I wanted to be like a hybrid between like a coach and, an academic, researcher. So that was my whole point of wanting to go into, my doctorate. And then I ended up being assistant professor for 2 years at my first school. That was at Lindenwood University, that's on the west side of St. Louis. And then I was at University of Southern Mississippi for a year. I've taught undergraduate courses, sports performance, sport nutrition, strength and conditioning, corrective biomechanics. So I've kind of run. I've kind of like run.
That's like a million books.
Yeah, I mean, I've run the gamut in terms of courses. I've been published, written for, interviewed for pretty much every major fitness and strength magazine in the country. I've written 12 or 13 book chapters. I've done like a ton of podcasts. Now we're on all social platforms, so I'm doing a lot more content. Over the last 11 years, I'm coming up on 100 talks that I've given, just over 10 years. My goal was 50, so I've surpassed that.
You said we. Do you have a team?
I just have a couple. I'm sorry?
Do you have like a business partner, or who is we? When
it's just me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just me. So I mean, I have a couple team members that help me in terms of some of the back end stuff. But yeah, I mean, when I was teaching, like there was really nobody. It was just me, speaking. in teaching. So it's been a wild ride, and now kind of transition out of the academic sector, now doing more my own thing, content, developing a course, and speaking, trying to do some online stuff.
Yeah, and you've spoken. We were talking right before this podcast even started, and he's like traveled over how many countries, or how many like different stages have you been on? Like a million?
Yeah, it's been a lot. I think total talks it's been like 100. Maybe slightly past 100 total talks. Some of those are new. Some of those I create new ones like every year. But then I actually did a 12-day tour in Asia last fall, in Singapore.
That's so cool.
And Bangkok, Thailand. Yeah, it was awesome.
That is so cool. That's what a neat experience. Not only you feel like so fulfilled, and that's what we believe is like life is. The more experiences that you have, the more fulfilled that you feel like internally, and that's neat. I saw. Did you go to here in Arizona, Grand Canyon University?
Yeah, I taught there on the west side.
Oh, you taught there. So what was that like? Were you like a professor there, or
Yes.
like did you come and speak? What was that like?
Yeah, I taught. I was a professor in their undergraduate program. So they just have undergraduate. They don't have a graduate program. But it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. But I just wanted to do more, in the industry and have a lot more opportunities.
What do you talk about? Like, what do you talk about how to, I don't know. The only thing I know about fitness is like doing a push-up. I'm like still educating myself.
Right.
I have this book, it's called Eat Smarter, is the name. It's like this bright orange book. And I'm like 2 chapters in, but like I'm trying to educate myself on
Was
health.
that Sean Stevenson's? Or?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes it is.
Yeah.
He does one on sleep as well too.
Yeah. I think that the sleep one, I think it was his first book.
Yes,
I may not be
and so like I'm trying to educate myself more,
Yeah.
but like when you're at a college level, like what do you talk about?
Okay,
What do you
it's
teach
probably
people?
not.
What's the framework?
It's probably not what people like. You may think, oh, it's how to get like jacked and swole and tan and all that.
Yeah,
It's a
tan.
little, right. It's a little bit more curriculum based. Like just so, for example, if you're teaching, sports performance, it's how to do like basic lifts. The exercise science, in terms of physiological types of systems, energy systems, cardiovascular type of stuff. So it's a little bit more structured in terms of what you may see like in your basic exercise science type of book. And you just kind of teach various principles and fundamental concepts.
So does the school tell you what you have to
So
teach?
it really
or they give you a rubric?
It depends, right? So every school is different. In certain schools, it's a little bit more of like a centralized curriculum. But you like in terms of here's the topics, right? Here's what you teach, but the content in and of itself is more or less up to you, right? So there's a little bit of autonomy. And then with some institutions, it's free game. Here's the topic, you can teach it however you want.
Got it. Okay. So going to school, and then now you're classified as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Because you have your own coaching program where people, and I'll put like the link below so people can go find you too as well. So you have your coaching program now. Why did you decide to do that instead of stick with like the schooling or?
I still like teaching. I mean, I did like working with the students a lot. It just got to a point to where there was other opportunities available. And I wanted more. I mean, I've always been like fulfilled, like, to have a purpose, a sense of contribution to, organizations and companies in the industry and all that. But I just want more. I'm somebody who's always adapting and evolving and innovating, and just more opportunities that can really extend above and beyond what I was previously, doing. So, I still have a lot of friends, obviously, in academia. I mean, there's great professors out there. There's great people. I mean, I like to think I was one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want more opportunities.
I have a question
Yeah.
because people have asked me this question too. Actually, we get a lot of people that reach out to Andy that are about to graduate high school. And they reach out to Andy and they're like, hey, Andy, I need help with going. Like, I'm not sure if I want to go into sales, business, like what I should do. And a lot of young people, like 17, 18 years old, 16 years old, still in like middle school and high school, they ask all the time, like, is it worth it to go to college? Should I just get right into business, into entrepreneurship? Because before, back in the day, it was you had to get a college degree
Right.
to do anything. But sales was the only industry where you didn't have to get, a degree to be successful. So in your opinion, based off of your experiences, like, do you believe that? If a young kid reached out to you, saw you on Instagram, and they're like, hey, I really want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a coach, because everybody's becoming coaches nowadays. Like, what would you advise?
Okay, that's a good question.
Do you think
because
school and business together?
my philosophy has changed on kind of based around that question over the last like 3 to 5 years. I used to think when I was beginning during like my doctorate, I was like, well, how come more people don't want to go into like graduate school, or how come more people don't want to, matriculate further, into their education. And my advisor at the time, and he still teaches, like we're still, lifelong friends. He said the reality is that the vast majority of people just want to get their degree and just move on and do something else, right? And there's a lot of truth to that. And as I've kind of transitioned out of the true, hardcore academic stuff, I've come to realize that not everybody actually really needs to go to school.
Yeah.
I think for the vast majority of people, now, unless you're going to do specialized types of, endeavors,
Niche.
yeah, specific niche, STEM fields, science, tech, engineering, math, med school, specialized medicine, law school, things of that nature. I don't understand why people need to spend $60,000 to $100,000 for an education to, go into like philosophy, or something like that. People need to understand that you can learn so much more just watching YouTube than you can from a 4-year degree. I'm not saying that a degree is completely worthless. I'm talking about the total value added or total value proposition has significantly decreased over the last number of years.
Yeah, you can go on YouTube and find out how to build a tiny home. I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this?
And
It's
then
a time lapse.
And then be on
like,
TLC, tiny
yeah,
houses.
It's a time lapse of 30 minutes, and I'm like,
Yeah, but that 30 minutes was like a year plus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think about stuff like that, and I'm like, so then I get all motivated. I'm like, I'm gonna go build my own bed frame.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go build my own kitchen, and then I'm like, oh, these supplies, and you have to cut certain dimensions, and
yeah, but I think people need to like rethink and use a little bit more critical and analytical thinking of what they want to do, post graduation, and what is required of them in terms of the job, because the reality is that you will get more quote on the job training from whatever company or organization that you're going to be working for than you will at any type of academic institution.
What are some fears that you've had to face going through school, and because that's stressful, like
Yes.
going through school, working that out, plus like coaching, this whole thing. Like, what are some fears that you've
Let's just be real, a lot of fears, actually. I was not very academically inclined growing up.
Yeah, same.
I hated to read, I hated to write, I hated to do homework. I went through quite a few like learning centers, at the time. I just wasn't really like focused in terms of, I guess looking back, the reason I wasn't focused is because I couldn't find anything that was really interesting for me to just wanting to really learn more of. But looking back, traditionally, I was always good and had interest in the sciences. Right? And so that kind of led me to going down this, 20-year long path of, health and fitness and coaching. And I remember I was a freshman in college, and I had to take like a basic weight training course, right? And I'm looking through the course catalog, and it's like, okay, like what do I major in? Because most people don't even really know this. I play multiple instruments. So I started out.
Oh, you do?
I do.
No, which ones?
I started out with drums.
Okay.
And then I transitioned to guitar.
Okay.
And then I'm an avid piano player of 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah, can't read any music, never had any lessons, although I did take kind of drum and piano lessons like back to back, the latter part of like high school. But, because of the, fingering the chord structure of like guitar, it's really helped with like piano. So,
Interesting.
yeah. And so I remember looking in the course catalog, and you got to take this basic, weight training class. I'm like, okay, like what am I going to major in?
Yeah.
So it's like, am I going to major like in music? Well, I'm 18 years old at the time, and well, what the hell am I going to do with that? Probably nothing. So I was like, okay, well, I just started getting into weight training and started lifting. So I was like, maybe there's something of that nature in the course catalog. So I was like, okay, it says like exercise science. Sounds pretty cool to me. Let's just do it. So, one thing like led to another, and most people don't know this either. I'll share this with your audience. I'm a near college dropout. So at the end of my sophomore year of college, my GPA was like 1.7. Wow. Now, just to give you some frame of reference, entry requirements at most college and universities is like a 2.0 to 2.5.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So my GPA was like 1.7.
Yeah.
Right. So luckily, I was able to meet some higher ups, at the time, and got back in full time. And at the end, I went from a GPA of 1.7 to graduate undergrad with a 3.2. And then I immediately went into my master's. I originally wanted to go somewhere else, for my master's, but just time and financially, like it just wasn't going to work out. And then I stayed on, to go through my master's. I had my master's degree and 2 certifications by the age of 23. I started my PhD when I was 25. And then I got done in 2015. So it's been quite a bit of a journey, needless to say. So a lot of ups and downs, a lot of fears, a lot of anxiety, almost on a daily and weekly basis. I don't really know any high-level performers, entrepreneurs, or coaches that do not experience that.
Yeah.
And I think when you do experience that, you come at a point in time where you're on the right path. Going down the road that is well traveled is really not going to get you a lot of places.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever go through a drinking phase?
Very little.
Oh,
actually.
You're lucky. I went through a big one.
Yeah.
I went through a drinking phase where I'm like, I just want to relieve the pain.
Right.
I want something else to go to, a comfort thing to
coping
take me away.
Coping type of mechanism.
Totally.
Yep.
And I didn't really have any mentors at the time. I didn't even know what a freaking mentor was. I just, kind of did the right thing to do to kind of get through that. So. I can only imagine the anxiety that's built up through that. Do you have limiting beliefs during that time, or things that you had to go through, and what was that like? I used to tell myself in sales when I was selling, I sold cars for 10 years. I used to tell myself sometimes because I'm a girl, people don't want to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even had clients tell me that. They're like, oh, we don't buy from people like you, which they're hinting I want to work with a male, not a female.
Sure.
And I'm just like, dude, I'm out here freaking busting my butt, going to school full time, and I'm selling cars full time to help you and your family, but you want to work with Joe Schmo over here that doesn't care, and I'm trying to build a life for myself, and so I had these limiting beliefs. Did you ever have those?
Did I have self-limiting beliefs? Absolutely. There was a time to where I'm just like what am I doing? What am I doing here? I remember very vividly that my other classmates at the time, they just seem to just breeze through, everything.
Yes, I hate that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck? And you didn't even study.
They studied and they work hard.
Yeah.
And so did I. But it's why is it just easier for them? And it's 3 times as harder for myself.
Yes.
So
I felt that before.
And luckily, my advisor obviously was phenomenal, and he's internationally known. And most people don't know this either, and I'll share this, is that every doctor candidate has to go through their comprehensive PhD exams. So imagine a really thick book, this size, know everything except for a couple of chapters. Yeah, know everything. Right? So I actually did not pass my comprehensive exams the first time around. And it was pretty devastating, right? And at the time, it's you, the student, or anybody for that nature, thinks that you take your exams and you just write a couple of paragraphs, or you do some bullet point listing, because that's very similar to what anybody would do taking a normal test of any sort. I did not pass my first time around.
Oh my gosh.
And so
I have a confession too after yours.
And I had to retake it again. And I did not pass half of that. So I had to take it a third time.
Yep.
And so I believe they changed it now, but I think you get 3 times.
Yeah,
and then you're done.
That's it.
So during the first and second, after the second time, I had to meet with my advisor. I was still teaching these basic activity classes at the time because I was still on scholarship. He and I had to meet every week, sometimes twice a week. And he would tell me, okay, it's Monday. You have a week to learn as much as you can about topic A.
He cared about you.
And
He wanted you to.
And then we meet in person. Yeah. Now keep in mind, this guy has been teaching for 30 years and is internationally known, so I had to teach him. We had to meet every week, sometimes twice a week. It's okay, John, tell me everything about, hypertrophy or this or that. So I couldn't use a whole lot of notes. I had to write on the board, write on the whiteboard, and just teach him. I had to do that every week for almost 20 weeks.
Wow. Aren't you proud of yourself for that?
Yeah, I looking back, I am. Yeah, and so that was one of the rock bottom moments that I had in terms of not passing the first time around. What it did was it just kind of flipped the switch, and what I mean is it allowed me to connect more of the dots about how things happen and why things happen, and that lends itself to a whole host of things now with leadership and entrepreneurship and figuring things out as you go along. And so I was able to take those ideas and implementation and execute that not only into the classroom, but now use those components to like where I am now. So yeah, it was pretty rough, and though they had some good experiences while I was teaching. But yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot more opportunities out there. So I would tell the individual, what do you want to do? Like, what do you like? You know, what are you passionate about? What is going to give you like meaning? What is going to wake you up, you know, in the morning, you know, to have large amounts of, you know, contribution and fulfillment to a company or society or your organizations. There has to be something that is way over and above, you know, you.
When the pain overrides. Yeah.
That's right.
And you're not married? You don't
I am.
have kids? You are married?
I am.
Ladies, he's taken. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. You're married. Is she here in Phoenix?
She
with
is.
You? I wish she
yes.
would have came here with
Oh
you.
yeah, she had a meeting with her boss.
Do you guys have kids?
We do not.
Okay. Do you plan on having kids? Do you want to have
We're talking
kids?
about it.
Okay. That's exciting.
We'll see what happens.
I know you have your nieces and nephews around a lot. I see them like on social media, right? Are those your nieces and nephews?
Some, yeah, but they actually live in Louisville. They're not here locally.
Okay, yeah, you go and travel and go see them. Oh, and what does your wife do? What's her name?
Joanna.
What does she do?
She is in loans and mortgages.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, she does very well.
She's in the sales field too. Well, I guess technically you're in sales too because you sell your coaching program. That's awesome. How did you guys meet? How long have you guys been married?
We were married November of 2021.
Oh,
so fairly recently.
Okay, how did you guys meet?
We actually met here in Phoenix at a meetup. It was like a professional, you know, networking event and all that stuff. And I had just moved here like about 2 months prior. You know, wasn't really expecting to meet anybody, but you know, sometimes when you don't expect it, like just things just you know, happen. Yeah. So yeah, we met, and you know, we actually it's funny. We lived on the same street.
Wow.
But about 12 miles apart. So I was on Lower Scottsdale and like rural, and she was like North Scottsdale at the 101 in like Mayo.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? You know, then we bought a house a few years ago, and that's a whole other story about all the house, you know, renovations and stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so now, you know, travel, a lot of times she goes with me. It's a work in progress for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you guys. You'll have to bring her here and come and meet her. Do you have a Theragun?
I used to, but I don't use it.
Do you believe in them? Do you think it really does work?
I think for certain people it can.
But, I have one, and it's got a hot and a cold option.
Okay.
But I didn't know if like you use it. I just got into it, and I'm like after a long day, like in heels, you know, it feels like good on my feet or on my calves.
Yeah,
I was just gonna ask you about that because I just bought one.
I think for some people, it does and can work. I also believe there's a placebo effect with it as well.
Oh, interesting.
And what I mean is, when you're trying to, like, neurologically speaking or physiologically, when you're trying to like relax the muscle, and when you stimulate it, it becomes an overstimulation, and your nervous system freaks out. So that's one of the main like physiological premises about, say, things like yoga, you know, Pilates, like meditation. You're trying to increase parasympathetic like output, right? More like the relaxation part. You know, not the fight or flight, but more like the relaxation, you know, part. So when you're if that's your goal, but yet you're overstimulating the muscle at the same time you're trying to enhance parasympathetic tone, it seems to be counterintuitive.
Interesting.
Right? Now, I mean, I'm not saying that that's for every single person, right? Like it can help,
like that.
but yeah, it depends on what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, they're not expensive anymore. They're like maybe $80 or $100. Like when they first came out, they were $600.
Yeah, so expensive. Now you have like knockoff brands and every which brand that's
right.
making, you know, or they'll charge you more, and it's like, hey, it's $100 more if you want the cold option too, or all the interchanging heads.
Or just do it. Just jump in cold water.
That is true.
I mean, like,
do you have a cold plunge?
I don't. I have a pool and it's cold, so there you go.
Oh yeah, that's considered it.
Yeah.
Until it gets summertime, I guess. But wintertime, it still is pretty chilly. We're trying to get a cold plunge here so that we can
nice.
dip in it.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet. I've done it once, and
it's
I'm just
not the same as like a cold shower. I mean, there's similar physiological feelings, but it's not the same. Like it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just different.
Yeah.
When you're a 65 or 70 degree cold, temperature shower versus like a 50 degree, pool or cold plunge, it's different.
Sure. I remember we took a trip to Sedona. Me and my boyfriend took a trip to Sedona, and we had driven 2 hours away.
Yeah.
And then we did like rock wall climbing that day. And anyways, it's like 3:00 in the afternoon. We check into our hotel, And I'm like, man, I'm kind of craving an energy drink. He's like, I'm just going to jump in the shower, take a cold shower. I'm like, really?
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, it works just as good. And I didn't believe him. And I knew it was going to be painful because it's cold. Nobody likes
I
cold
still
showers.
do it.
And I jumped in and I just felt like better than an energy drink. And then it's natural because it's just water. You know, I'm not taking and consuming sugars. But I was just like, oh my gosh, this actually feels really good. And you feel like vibrant and alive. And
yeah, it certainly does have its benefits. There's been some recent research about, and I actually made a post about this about a year and a half ago. But there's been some more recent studies that have come out that can be somewhat of a deterrent to maximize like muscle hypertrophy in terms of some of the physiological types of responses. So again, not saying like don't take a cold shower, don't do like a cold plunge, but you don't need to do 3 or 4 a day,
right,
type of thing.
Right. Yes. God, good. I don't want to take one a couple times a day. Maybe even just jump in. I'm like tension in with my toe. I'm like, no.
Well, you'll definitely wake up. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now, and you've been following Andy for a year, the Elliott Group, and you found him through just resources, other people, connections in Arizona. Have you just watched him on YouTube, or have you
I have
watched it like? Well, yeah, what it was, because some people watch
Six pack, you're fired.
All right, there we go.
Right?
I'm like, yeah, some people know it, some people don't know the lines. I've actually had people before that are like, I've never intentionally watched it, but they scroll past by like the reels and stuff, and they see it. But since you've been watching Andy, how has he changed you, and like your perception and your view of different things since you've been following?
It's nice to see individuals that not only can hold other people accountable only because they hold themselves accountable, but wanting to really just overall just change people's lives, not just through like the language, but just through actions, through execution, and that creates a long list of great character traits and integrity to not only change people's lives within your company, but just change people's lives even outside the company or within an industry. So it says a lot about an individual, and just some of the language. Some of it's it's entertaining, it's motivating. It's like, wait, okay, now I see what you're saying. So yeah, I think it can certainly serve people very well if they need that, and everybody needs some type of motivation or discipline. But discipline and structure and routine, and commitment and perseverance and grit will take somebody far further than just motivation. You can't be motivated like every single day. There's days that I just don't want to do anything. But again, what's your higher purpose?
I remember when I first started training with him, he's like, think about your all-time high, your high peaks in life. High school, I ran track, cross country, and I did junior Olympics too. And I think to myself, like, those were some very high times in my life, winning awards, feeling really good. Well, guess what happened in high school? Guess what I had? A coach. Yeah. That coach pushed me. What did I have? A team. That team pushed me. And then as I got out of high school, college, I was just really, doing my own studies, but I didn't really have a coach until now, meeting Andy 2 years ago, having a coach again. And it's almost like I felt like I was kind of back in high school, like having a coach to push me to another level. And now it's like, now I get to peak again. Like we get multiple peaks throughout life. But my ones before training with the Elliott Group were in high school, of like somebody just pushing me. And I forgot what that feeling was like, because I think the rest of the world is just so average and mediocre.
Very much so.
And everybody's like, oh, you don't need that. And it's like, well, says the guy that still lives in his mom's house that's eating a bag of Cheetos.
You got
wants
Cheeto
to
dust.
Blame everybody.
You have Cheeto dust on your bellies, and you live at the university of your mom's basement.
Yes.
So listen, I don't listen to those types of people. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody needs 3 people in their lives. You need somebody at your level, okay, to understand and relate to, and then even compete with. You need somebody above you to aspire to be and lead, and you need people below you to inspire, so that as you move up, then the people below you can move up as well. So you're setting the standard for yourself.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I'd never thought about it, those 3 levels. How'd you come up with that? Is that your thing? Is that what you talk about when
I heard it somewhere years ago.
I know. It's like we take stuff and then we make it our own, but that's really good.
Yeah.
That I think that everybody kind of needs somebody. So my brother, he just turned 16 in January, and he's actually came out to an event already. He came out in January for his birthday. We surprised him to train with Andy for the day.
Awesome.
And then he's coming out to his second one in May, and he wants to compete for professional for soccer.
That's great.
He wants to play for USA or for Japan. My mom said family's from Japan. So I had a long conversation with him, and I'm like, look, don't be that kid that just wants to talk about the highlight stuff. Because you go watch, Messi, or you go watch like Conor McGregor, like the top people that are in their sports, Michael Jordan, they didn't just say that they wanted to get there. They had actions that back those results up.
That's right.
So don't tell me that you want to go play professional, but you're not willing to put in the work.
That's right.
And so my brothers and my mom, they live out in Wisconsin, so it's freezing in the wintertime. And I'm like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be cold. There's going to be mornings where you're not going to want to get up and dribble the ball back and forth down. But if it's too cold outside, you got to figure out a way. Go to the local YMCA, go down to the basement. You put the heaters down in the basement and you do drill practices.
That's right.
I'm like the compound effect. Imagine you train twice a day versus the other guys that you're competing, because he's going to get accepted into a college and so on and so forth, and outwork everybody else.
Yeah, Ed Milet calls it compound pounding, right?
Yes.
Right. It's a beautiful analogy. And so really to any point, like, winners do shit, losers talk shit.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. It's like, can you do the small, mundane stuff day in and day out? And it's a series of like inputs, like, and outputs. Everybody wants the output or the result or series of results, but they're not willing to put in the series of inputs to get the greater outcome. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Kobe Bryant was the same way. Like, all these people that you look up to, whether they're, I guess minus, I would say more sports people, or even like certain types of celebrities, they're always putting in the work, and there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes, because everybody always sees the successes.
Yes. I want to tell you about the caterpillar story.
Yeah, and then nobody sees like all the ups and downs, all the peaks and valleys, all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, the sweat, like the tears, the anxiety, all the fears, like nobody sees that. So even on some of my Instagram stories, like, I like to post and even talk about all those things, because people just relate to it more. It's more realistic, and it becomes more authentic.
And I was reading this book, and it's so cool. So we were taught as kids, like, how it goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Like,
Right.
We've read those books, and it talks about, like, change is possible. That's what they're getting at. Change is possible, and you can turn into this beautiful butterfly instead of this hairy, gross insect. Well, during the metamorphosis process, do you know what happens inside of the cocoon? So the caterpillar goes from a hairy little walking bug thing with all these tiny legs, and then it creates a cocoon, right? And then it eventually turns into a butterfly. Well, inside of that cocoon, what nobody knows is it liquefies its entire self. It goes completely liquid during the metamorphosis process. Nobody knows about that part. And during that part in the cocoon is the most stressful season for the butterfly, or soon-to-be butterfly. What ends up happening is, as the wings and the body start to form of the butterfly, when it breaks out of the cocoon, its wings are still wet. It has to like dry it out first. Then once it's dry, then it can fly away. 98% of butterflies don't make it. Through just predators, through the weather, through storms, other insects eating it, 98% don't. Only 2% of butterflies actually make it, because they have to hold out their wings and let it dry before they can fly out. And it's like, but nobody knows that part. Nobody sees that stress of what the butterfly goes through. And some people may think, if you're liquefying itself, that's like technically going backwards. Well, sometimes like you kind of have to go backwards in order to like move forward.
Yeah, most of the times you have to take 2 steps back to gain the 4 or 5 steps forward, right? And I just wish more people would talk about that, whether it's podcasting or just in pure conversation, or any type of outlet. More people need to know and understand like what it really takes, right? And I've done a lot of things in the industry. There's a lot of things that I haven't done yet that like I want to do, but it's a constant work in process. And I think that's what ultimately makes, great leaders and high performers. So.
It's so true. Man, it's so true. Okay, I was wondering, I wrote this question down and I was like, I have to ask you, if you got to hang out with the Elliott Group for a week and you get to follow us around at the den and hang out with us, what would you want to learn from us? Because you see, or we have like a massive team, right? It's not just Andy. It used to be just Andy, and then it kind of turned into the Elliott Group, and now there's a bunch of mini ones of all of us. So, like, what would you want to learn if you got to hang out with us for the week?
I would like to see how you guys train.
In what ways?
Fitness and like the strength training, type of regimen, and how you integrate that into both your personal life and the professional life, and how you can use that and execute to, leadership qualities and, all the seminars and stuff that you guys do, what it means to be a high performer and have higher levels of accountability, and what it really means to really lead. I think no matter who you see, who you're around, you'll know through their actions whether or not they're a true, tried and true leader or not. Because if you can't hold yourself accountable, how are you going to lead other people? And this goes for any company, any organization. I would like to learn that, and I would like to learn, some of the downsides too of, the process and how you got to, be where you currently are.
That's cool. We have it's so neat. I've like started this little form in the Elliott group of these little teams. So like we have an Elliott group bowling team. A couple of us like get together, and I mean we're not like competitive, but we just go out to go have fun. It's a team bonding thing, so we have that. We have the Elliott group music team. We have like the official. We have all these like little teams inside of the company. It's so cool. So we created the Ironman team.
Nice.
And we've been training for that for 7 months. And it's so crazy. So there's that, and then we also have 2 guys that are powerlifting. Actually, their competition's coming up on Sunday.
That's awesome.
And it's cool because they'll send out a message, so we all go down to the facility.
Our former competitor.
Yeah, and we're all wearing
though.
yes, yeah, and we're all wearing our Elliott shirts, and they're competing, and we're there cheering them on because I know what it means to like compete, and I think it's really good that the coaches inside of the Elliott group are also competing in sports too, not just in sales, because it gives them another depth. So, what's crazy is the Ironman started in the 70s, like the whole like triathlon style,
Correct.
the 70 miles, 140 miles. Do you know there's 8 billion people out in the world? 8 billion people. You know how many people run an Ironman?
Probably less than 100.
1,000.
Wow.
Over a year is 2,500.
Okay.
They typically have about 3 or 4 a year. The one that we just completed had 750. 750,
Listen.
which means only 1% of the population actually will train. Not only train, but run through the finish line. Because if you don't make the time and run through the finish line, you don't count.
Correct.
You get a do not compete. 1%, and that blew my mind because I'm like, there's so many people that have, and I remember like sitting there, and I remember watching right before I started running, seeing the top guy finish. He finished within 4 hours.
That's amazing.
His name's Javier. He finished within 4 hours. I finished within like 7 hours, and I did the relay. There was a relay portion. I did the running. We had a gal that did the swimming, and then somebody that did the biking. I'm gonna do the biking next time. But this guy is finishing through within 4 hours. And I'm like, this dude gets it, and it was all right here. This is all it was. Because the celebration is the race, but the hard work is the 7 months prior. And I just knew, like, getting out there, it's a mental game. That's all it is. It's just all in your head. Because you've already done the training. Your body's already conditioned for it. I've been running 10 miles once a week and then 5 miles, like, 3 times throughout the week. So it's like...
I mean, we're in the 1% club.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
crazy.
you take a look at the state of health in the United States. I mean, around 45% are extremely overweight and obese. I mean, it's very sad. And so, when you have people like us who train regularly, like they eat, they track stuff, they have it as a large part of their lifestyle. Hey, I'm happy to be in the 1%. I will stand up. I don't care if I have to stand alone. I will stand up if I'm in the 1%.
Yeah. It's we talk about like relationships with people, and it's like I'd rather in the Elliott group we talk about we'd rather be alone than be with the wrong people that we shouldn't be with.
I agree.
And it's like if that means if it's a romantic relationship or a business relationship, if that person's just trying to use you for certain connections, it's like I'd rather be alone because we don't need the money, and we don't like I don't want your name around our name because your intentions aren't right. And I think people, like back in 2010, everybody was fake. Everybody was like renting out an Airbnb and pretending like it's their home and doing a YouTube vlog, but it's like now that stuff is flushed out and people really know you. And Andy always says, he goes, the eyes are the window to the soul. Like you can tell everything about a person, but just by looking at them. Right. And it's so true. Like you can see people's intentions. You can see people's like believability scale. And so back in December, we went to Disneyland for Christmas.
Nice.
I remember walking in there and like 2-3 people came up to us and they're like, "Are you a CrossFit trainer?" And I'm like, No, but I had looked around and I had realized I didn't understand like why people were asking this. And we had our Elliot shirts on, so it had the no rich parents, no handouts, quote on the back. But I'm like, why are people asking us this? Me and my boyfriend. And then I'd realized, I looked up and I looked around the millions of people that are around us, and everybody is extremely overweight, and their kids are too. And the kids get it from their parents because that's all that they know.
Yes.
And I'm just like, and then you look at the people that are sluggish. You look at the people that have like, conditions that, have like, disabilities because they're not getting out and exercising. And I'm just like, I feel for them, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to wake you up to be like, you can have it all, and you can have your health, and you can have, you don't have to be in a wheelchair to get around at Disneyland. Like, you can have your legs and walk around. We walked like 10 miles that day in one day around the whole park.
I believe that to a large degree of that, we've been conditioned to look like that. Like, we're conditioned because, like, they want you weak, they want you fat, they want you uneducated, they want you dependent on the system. And the more that you can get out of the system, not live in the matrix, so to speak, and be an actual real leader and lead the values and have high standards, the better you will be in life. So I'm happy to be in the 1%.
Does your wife work out with you? Do you guys both work out?
We work out.
Or she's like, I like to do my own thing?
It's both. Okay. It's a little bit of both. Yeah. I train a little bit more often, but then she goes with me, and we train hard.
Is she the one in your Instagram videos?
No, that's another.
I know you have somebody that always does your.
Yeah, no, she's another client of mine that does some stuff for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But she's cool with it. She's like, yeah, use me as an example.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun. But everything's a work in progress, and there's peaks and valleys with everything. So.
That's really cool. Yeah, we're completing that Ironman is like totally has changed my life, and it's sparked back that competitive side in sports again for me. And it's so good because it trains me to do it for business too. I'm like, man, if I can just take this pissed off passion in a good way and then go apply it in business. And then the cool part, the byproduct of it is the success, but it's also like, how you said, like, people below you. So like people like my brothers that are still in high school, like now they have somebody that they can look up to, as it's like, I'm doing it in my own life. Like, I'm getting out here after it. So like they show up to my coaching calls. I do coaching calls on Wednesday nights. They're always on them. And I'm like, good. Because I want them around that, not the other kids that are around them in school that just want to play video games all day long. Like, that's not going to push them. That's not going to grow them. They're not going to learn new information or knowledge.
Yeah. And then you can easily say, well, they're my friends, or they're this. Okay, that's cool. See what they're doing in 5 years.
Yes.
See what they're doing in 10 years. Let me know. Come back to me and talk to me. Let me know.
Yeah, I believe that there's people that that like push you to your next level. Like, there's people that are just kind of pleasers. They're the happy people that just want to be happy for you.
Yeah.
Like, I have certain family members that are like, you need to take it easy. You need to relax. You're doing it all. And I'm like, no, there's so much more fuel in my tank.
There is. It's funny you say that, because I get this quite often, like throughout the year, just people in general. They're like, John, like, why do you go to the gym so much? Why do you do this? How come you speak all this other stuff? How come you go to and attend events even though, like, you may not speak? Here's, one of my favorite. Here's my favorite. When are you going to get a real job? Okay? Oh. That's my favorite. And my answer is always never.
Yeah.
My answer is always never. To all those questions, it's never.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Why be average when you can be savage?
Yeah. Yes. That's what we're going to title this maybe then. I like that instead. I've realized, your journey is your own journey. And I used to compare myself a lot. I used to compare myself. Even when I started at the Elliott Group, we have like a scoreboard in there that has our top producers. And I'm brand new. And I'm just like, how do I get to the top? And I would compare myself to the people at the top, because I'm brand new. I've sold cars for 10 years, which is totally different than this industry. And I'm like, how do I get up there to the top? And I used to beat myself up. And then I've realized within 2 years of working with Andy, it's my own journey. Mm-hmm. And I like, when I close my eyes and I look back to this date a year ago, I'm so much further along. Mm-hmm. And as long as you can do that just every single time, and you're taking in new information and growing, like that's so important. So I've become addicted to reading, and I was just the same way that you said in college, like I hated books. So just like you, I failed math 3 times. Math 101?
Yeah.
I failed it 3 times in a row, and I have no idea. I have no idea how I got to my senior year, because you have to take like your 101, 102
Correct.
classes before you can, I mean, even get into your sophomore year. You have to graduate from that. It's like you can't be a senior taking a 101 class, you know,
Yeah.
because you can't be a freshman taking a 500 class.
Correct.
So I have no idea. Maybe I was good in sales. That's how it happened. But I remember taking that class 3 times. Finally, the last time I did the same thing that you did. I sat down with the professor and I'm just like, my parents already bought their plane tickets.
Yeah.
They're expecting me to walk in 6 months. And this one class is going to hold me back from walking across. I cannot afford that. And it's also embarrassing. So I remember sitting down every single week and I showed that professor and I was like, I'm going to do everything possible. And I think on my final exam, I scored like a 60 or something. It wasn't even a passing score. But the professor knew how much I cared and how much passion and effort that she goes, I'm just going to go ahead and give you a passing score, because she knew how much I wanted it. She saw like my consistency.
Yeah, you know, there are numerous periods in life, and really my life, to where, and it happens at different levels and at different stages, where you just, not on purpose, but you tell yourself, like, do you believe in yourself? There's a certain there's a large degree of uncertainty that occurs when you're trying to go to the next level and develop the skills necessary to get to that level. There's also a degree of, hey, am I cut out for this? Like, do I even believe in myself? And sometimes you just need one person to actually believe in you, and that's all it takes. And that's enough gas and enough fire to move several years down the road.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's
Awesome,
so
isn't it?
cool. So what's your next level? What is next for you? You've got your course now that you
Yeah,
have
we're
out there,
developing
but
the course. We're
like,
trying to, so I did the
next?
course in Singapore and certain segments of it in Bangkok, Thailand, at some events last fall. So we're continuing to develop the course, trying to get that approved through like various organizations, get people, you know, to sign it domestically, and then working on some stuff, you know, for later this year, hopefully over in the Middle East, and then start to kind of build that out, and then different specialized, you know, areas in terms of the actual course for different types of sports. So yeah, I mean, we're in the beginning stages, but it's going pretty well, and you know, there's, you know, trials and tribulations, and there's a lot of things you have to figure out, and a lot of things you never knew before, but you know, it's part of the game. And this is what people need to understand. When you can't just talk about the game, you mentioned this earlier, there's a difference between talking about it and doing it. Like, if you want to play the game, you have to be the game, right?
So,
I mean, you have to adapt and evolve and innovate. And honestly, like, if you're not adapting, evolving, and innovating, I mean, what the hell are you doing?
that's true. That is very true. So do you want to have like people underneath you, like other coaches that are training?
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
maybe like international or just here locally?
It could be locally or domestically. Yeah, that's the plan. You know, we're trying to build out some of the online coaching stuff, and eventually get some people underneath me working with me and help kind of build and scale that out. So there's different components, you know, with the course and some of the online stuff. And I can tell you, it's been pretty challenging, kind of coming out of the academic stuff a few years ago and transitioning over to the business. It's very different. It's like it's night and day. It's like you don't learn any of this shit in school. So there's a lot of, you know, talking to the right people, you know, getting involved, that type of thing. There's a big learning curve, but I will say I've enjoyed it as much as it's been frustrating, but at the same time, it's fulfilling.
Do you, what does your course consist of? Like if somebody was interested in this and then they went on to your website and they were looking at your course, what's in it? What is it?
Yeah, so the course is based off power development and like rotational power. It's a combination of what types of aspects of training and movement can you do to increase power output, rotational power. This could be for anybody from, you know, dancers, baseball players, tennis, you know, golf, that type of thing. So very, very important in terms of, you know, movements and moving in what's called transverse plane, which is where there's 3 different types of planes of movement: sagittal, frontal, and transverse. Transverse plane is where all the rotation happens. So if you want to increase power output and rotational power, you have to train in transverse plane. but you also need to train in a wide variety of movements, as well. So I talk about that a lot on my various posts. So in the process of just like, creating the course, through the rest of the year. And so I think people will really like it. It was a big hit in Singapore and, of course, in Bangkok. And
are the videos inside the course of you doing the movements?
yeah, I mean, yes. So there's videos. We're trying to create some new and better content, to put on stuff on the website now. But right now, people can go to all my social stuff and go check out all that stuff, in the meantime. So every time I post about it in different forms, like, people really like it. Most people talk about strength, hypertrophy, and that stuff is great, don't get me wrong. But people want, again, it's no one's really doing it. So if I'm happy to be the first one that does it.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to share anything else before we end this?
Well, you were talking about competitions, earlier, for the Ironmans. I'm actually a former Strongman competitor as well.
Okay.
I've done 7, 8 contests in the past.
Wow. Here in Arizona or where?
It was in New Mexico and I think another state.
Okay.
I got top 4 for all of them. And I even qualified for a national contest earlier on. I wasn't able to go because I couldn't either afford it or had something else going on at the time. But I would like to compete again, but I can do the Masters division now.
Oh, okay.
So it's the same implements, but the weights are a lot lighter.
Where's this at, and when is it?
Oh, they're all over.
Oh, okay. You just have to apply for it.
You have to apply.
Then
Apply and submit the little small fee and start training for it. Every competition is different. There's different events. There's different types of equipment. So there's gyms all over Phoenix, that have the equipment necessary. So it'll probably take a while to train for, considering like other things I have going on, business and travel and speaking wise. Sure. But yeah, we'd definitely like to do another contest, in the future.
That's cool.
Yeah, I also like MMA stuff too. So you may see me maybe get into a little bit of BJJ.
Yeah.
Because some friends of mine are like, yeah, you would dominate. You would just kill it. It's like probably from a strength and power perspective, but certainly like learning the skill is a completely anything different than what you may be used to.
Power, strength.
Power and strength, yeah.
Power and strength.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I want to get that like tattooed on my forehead.
Yeah.
Power and strength.
We mentioned earlier about books.
Yeah.
Right?
What are some that you read?
Oh, God.
What do you recommend?
All kinds of stuff. So big fan of Audible these days. I love Ed Milet's The Power of One More. Mm-hmm. I've read, of course, we were talking about before the show, the book on mental toughness.
Yes.
With Priscilla.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome book. Love it. Read it all the time.
We're on chapter 5.
Highlight that stuff. I am on chapter 4. Yeah. So it's good.
You read about Uncle Rico then.
Uncle Rico. That's right. Yeah, classic film. It's just like, just don't be an Uncle Rico.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I find myself kind of going back, and looking at certain, points and all that stuff and highlighting what's necessary. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Audible. I've read a lot of different types of books. Gosh, I have a whole list on my Audible, but yeah, those are some of the ones I recommend. Oh, and Tim Grover's Winning, and
we had him. We love the book Relentless.
Relentless.
This company was built off that book, Relentless.
Awesome.
We had him here speaking last summer. Last summer, yeah, or last fall he was here. And that was so cool. It was awesome. He let me hold my ring. He took it off, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "I can't believe I'm touching this thing. This is illegal."
That was a great seminar, I bet.
Yeah, it was really good. I think one thing that I love about older, coaches, mentors, if you will, is they've seen so much. Mm-hmm. They've experienced so much. And what I mean by older, I mean like 60s, 70s. They just like, it's a different form because they trained in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, which is totally different than now. We have so much technology involved, and don't get me wrong, technology is great, but back then, like, the society and the world was so different, and it was literally just put your shoes on and start throwing the hoops over and over, just keep doing it. And so I have so much love for him, and he's such a sweet man. Like, he's, I don't know, he's not like modern and flashy and cool. He's just like, he's
up front, he's honest, he tells it like it is.
Yeah, you can walk into the room and there's a certain presence about him that you feel in the room versus anybody else. Mm-hmm. He talks about toughness, but he's not angry.
Right.
He's not angry. He's just totally calm, and I just have a lot of respect. Very classy man. Very classy man.
Talks about the dark side.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool because he's probably seen so much, but when you look at him, he's gone through so much, and he can tell you all of his stories, and Cool dude.
Yeah.
Cool dude.
It's a
If I get married, when I get married, I am going to get married, not if. I'm going
Right.
to send that guy an invitation.
There you go. Right?
Can he come
Yeah, it's a combination of like experiences and exposures. A lot of people can have a lot of experience, but lack a lot of exposure to different types of.
Do you listen to Rob Bailey?
I've listened.
heard
A couple times, yeah, but not as much as I've listened to the other stuff before. But yeah, I've heard it. I've heard good things about it.
Love Rob Bailey. That's the only music I listen to, just because it's motivating. And Rob's a cool dude. We play his music all the time here in our Lions Den. We've done events with him too here before, but we love Rob Bailey. He's a pretty neat guy. Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. Loved it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that we're here. Until the next time, guys, maybe I'll have today was a doctor. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna have? Like a zoologist specialist next time, or some kind of, maybe I'll have like an astronaut the next time.
There you go.
That'd be really cool too. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Dr. Jonathan Mike, and below I will make sure to put all of his links to his website, his contact info, Instagram, Facebook, so you can know exactly where to find him. See you guys next time. Bye. What's going on, Elliott Army? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like that content, please subscribe. Also, if you loved it too, take a look at these other videos that are very similar to help you guys add value, crush it, kill it. Come on.